So QIB is, of course, the country leading Sharia compliant lender, and they have issued the first Basel III and IFSB compliant additional Tier 1 Sukuk in Qatar, which of course has helped to strengthen your core capital position, but also, and most importantly, perhaps not only exclusively for your organization, has set a standard, the framework for many other countries and many other institutions. So this is surely one of the elements we want to touch upon during the interview, but I'd like to have a little bit of an overview on what the expectation for 2017 are going to be in terms of macroeconomic situation, geopolitical situation, and of course how this is going to be affecting your strategy and priorities for the rest of the year.
Well, first of all, I'm in a big disadvantage speaking after Adel. And Adel actually has been my mentor for quite a long time. I'm quite disadvantaged here. I will not repeat what Adel said or His Excellency the Governor said. 2017 is a continuation of 16, and I expect what we have seen in 16 develop in terms of the liquidity issues that we have seen, not in Qatar, across the GCC, and the result of actually a lower spending from governments, and in some cases raising debt. I think this is going to continue in 17. The good thing about it is people are used to the new norm now. It's not 2014 anymore, or 13, or the years before that, where actually with the change people were expecting, no, we'll go back to the $100 level again. I think people have got used already to the new norm. It's a new reality that we have to adapt to. Governments have already taken steps towards that, and I share my colleagues, whoever have said that this is a blessing in disguise. In finance and in terms of public finance became more disciplined now, and this is across the board. What we see is actually 17 quite similar to 16.
More discipline. I think one of the elements have been touched upon in the previous interview was also corporate governance. Is this an element you feel that is coming along as a matter of conversation with your peers?
Regulations have developed a lot during the past period to make the dependence is growing in external financing as well. To be able to sell your paper or to sell your debt or finance or your name, you have to have a disciplined corporate governance, whether it is at the corporate level or whether it's at the government or the institutional level. So I think we have seen a lot of development in terms of the development and the improvement in the corporate governance across the board. There is more transparency now. There is actually, it became a regulatory requirement, command for institutions. Yani it's not kind of optional. And the more transparent the institutions are, the more attractive they become.
Going back to the opportunities that are set by Islamic banking in the GCC in particular, in terms of innovation, which seems to be the key element when we discuss where and how the products should be originated. Well, you set the standard. Tell us what your experience has been and if it's something that you find easy to implement within the current framework.
Well, look, our Islamic banks have been known for a very long time to being laid back, non-active, a kind of clients will come and deal with us. This is not the case anymore. It's becoming a very competitive market, and the growth opportunities are becoming more limited. Islamic banks had to invest in innovation and technology to be able to compete not just among each others. If you want to expand your market share, you have to start competing with the conventional banks. This was very important. For example, in our case, we were able to increase our market share over the past 4 years by 50%. We started at 8%, now we're at 12%. We started as number 5 player in the market, now we're second in the market after Qatar National Bank. This doesn't come just simply because you're expecting clients to come in and do business with you. It comes with investment in technology, in people, in changing the perception of clients and of even your local internal human capital, that they need to change their mindset to be more outgoing towards our clients or their clients, and being able to attract that kind of business.
That implies inclusion and financial literacy internally to retain talent, and externally to have new clients.
Internally, the mindset is quite different. Okay. If you were a monopoly in a market for a very long time, your mindset changes. It becomes, okay, I'm going to be laid back, and the client will come to me because they want to deal with an Islamic bank. This is no longer the case, and QIB is not the only player now in the market. We have other 4 players, and we are seeing more competition coming regionally and internationally. There are international banks with Islamic windows or Islamic banking. To be able to compete, you have to develop internally the change in mindset to be I wouldn't say at least at par. You have to be at par or better than conventional banks to be able to attract part of their market share. And the growth that we have seen and the Islamic banking scene in general is not just a kind of organic growth of people who want to deal with Islamic banks. No, it was actually taking a part of a conventional banking market share as well. In terms of innovation, as Adel actually mentioned, Islamic banks are still behind in terms of innovation, in terms of introducing new products that are not just imitating what conventional banks are generating. Will need a lot of work. It needs a better legislative environment. It needs a lot of investment in the education for Islamic banking, and we have seen steps towards that, and we have seen actually many countries in the Gulf here want to attract the Islamic banking business as centers for Islamic banking. The change in mindset and investment in education of Islamic banking and investing in talents and technology will have to be happening in the very near future.
So one point that would stem naturally is the conversation on fintech. Do you see it as most of the conventional banks an element of competition, eroding spaces that were previously exclusive to banks, or do you see it as an opportunity, given that origination is the whole issue? Yeah.
I think fintech and banks are 2 faces of the same coin, eventually. A lot of people might disagree with me in what I'm saying, but this is at least my own opinion. As banks, we are able to provide the resources and the market reach. We are in an industry of trust. People deal with banks because they trust the banks. Leaving your money with someone, that means that you're trusting someone. Fintech companies have been a subject of investments from international banks. You have seen Citi, you have seen Goldman Sachs, you have seen Santander. They're really investing into fintech companies, and they see where the future is going. I think eventually we're not going to compete. We'll work together in terms of providing a solution that is acceptable to regulators, and it's a highly regulated industry. Banking is becoming more and more regulated by the minute. And as you have seen, or you've heard from His Excellency, the Governor, it is becoming a burden. It's a highly regulated industry. The fintech entry to the banking industry will be also regulated. It's not going to be an easy entry. So we provide the platform for their entry, and we would benefit from their innovation and the technology.
Can you still benefit of innovation if innovation gets regulated?
Yes, definitely. I will not repeat that as well. But investment in technology is part of, to innovate, it doesn't mean that you become unregulated. You could be regulated, but you are investing in technology to make sure that your customer experience is simpler, it is easier, it is at the access at his convenience.
Okay. I'd like to take you on this very point on the competition with other banks within the region. Do you see this competition as different GCC players trying to enter the same markets, an element of stress for you, or is it an element of motivation?
Do I look stressed?
Never. You look wonderful.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I needed to hear it. No, actually, I personally, I like competition. Competition is not only good for the end user or the service user of what we provide, it is also good for the market players. Competition makes us think. Thinking is good. You cannot just sit there and do nothing and expect clients to come in. Competition makes us improve. Competition makes us look at efficiencies in our business model, how to improve our business model in terms of costs, in terms of revenue generation, in terms of product development, or in terms of sale of products. So competition is good for the market. How this competition evolves at the end of the day, the good competition actually differentiates between the good and the bad. In good times, everybody is happy. In challenging times, I will not say in bad times, in challenging times, the competition is the one that actually makes the good show that it is good, and the not so good show that it's not so good.
Darwinian selection, practically.
Absolutely.
Looking at this fragmentation, are you considering international expansion, as in the past has been on the table for you? Is it something we can ask you about, and perhaps you want to give us?
Unlike Adel Yani and his business model that he has implemented in AUB, we are more locally, I would say locally centric so far. We do have actually businesses outside of Qatar. We have a bank in the UK, we have a bank in Lebanon, we have a bank in Malaysia, we have a branch in North Sudan, but they're very small in size. To be able to compete in geographies, you have to be at a certain level of size. You cannot compete with the big boys or the big banks with those kinds of smaller levels. For our intention to grow externally is there. We do have the strategy, but where it makes business sense. In terms of the countries that, for example, would have a business flow between Qatar and the respective countries that we want to invest into, where the price would make sense as well as an entry. Expanding for the sake of expanding can become very costly. We have seen some players in general that have got their fingers burnt in doing that. So we have to be cautious, and for us, we are looking out for opportunities for external expansion while consolidating our market share. And QIB has lost the market share over a long period of time. What we are doing currently is that we are just regaining or reacquiring that market share, and it was reflected well in terms of the value creation for our shareholders. And to give you another example, I mentioned that our market share increased by 50%, our market cap has increased by 50%, our return on equity has increased by 50% during the same period. This is how you create value for your shareholders. This is what we're here for.
Excellent. So if it's not necessarily or exclusively international, geographical, horizontal expansion, is there a way to deepen your presence, for example, bringing more access to finance to SMEs? How do you contribute to the development of the capital markets for that part of the tier of society?
In terms of SMEs have been, or banks in general have shied away from financing SMEs for a very long time. It was easier, let's go and finance bigger corporates. The risk is lower. experience and knowledge of the market was not as deep. SME in any developing or developed country is the backbone of growth in terms of GDP and in terms of employment. And this is something that everybody knows. We're not reinventing the wheel here. The government or the governments in the GCC have been quite aware of that. They are, I would say, investing in incubators for the SME. I'll give you an example from our side. In Qatar, we have a bank called Qatar Development Bank. Qatar Development Bank, among its main kind of goals or objectives is to promote the SME. So what they do is that they actually provide guarantees for banks to be able to finance SME, and we have been quite active in terms of direct participation with QDB or in terms of our own participation in financing the SME. And to give you an example, we've tripled our portfolio size for SME financing over the past 3 or 4 years, and in the meantime our liquidity gathering from the SME has almost quadrupled during the same period of time. So there are opportunities. It needs a lot of effort, it needs experience, and it needs an incubator at the beginning. Once they start actually operating in terms of productivity and in terms of ability to succeed, I think those incubators could be released gradually.
Some have objected in the past, looking at this type of approach you may have exposed today, that liquidity doesn't seem to be a matter, political will is not an issue because everybody recognizes the importance of the base of society. However, perhaps bankers sometimes don't find interesting stories to invest in. Do you think that in the GCC there are enough investment stories for you to consider, or is it something that we need to work around?
There are definitely enough investment opportunities for us to consider within the GCC that could accommodate our growth potential, and not just us, actually the whole banking system in the Gulf, if you look at it. There are opportunities as well that go beyond the borders of the GCC in terms of being able to take advantage of the opportunities that emerge. But generally speaking, we tend to look at opportunities that would create value, and we just not create value in terms of bottom line. And this is not a slogan that we're using. We do have actually kind of a social responsibility at the end of the day. As long as we are contributing to, even with very minimum level, to the welfare of the society and environment that we're working in, we have to do that contribution. It's not just about bottom line. Yes, it is about bottom line, but our intention and our contribution to the local environment or the local societies that we're operating in has to be taken into account as well.
And this is a very good thought, for which we thank you very much, and it's very Sharia compliant as well.
Absolutely.
Here we go.
Totally.
So I thank you very much for your time and availability today, and well, now everybody's off for lunch, I guess.
Absolutely, I'm sure.
I thank you for staying with us today. See you tomorrow.